One, two, three, four.
Kia ora and welcome back to another episode of SciGest. I'm Erin Stroud, your host for today. And in today's episode, it's going to be part of our Starting in Science series, which is aimed at helping people navigate their pathway into a science career. So I have two awesome guests joining me today to chat about their summer in science and how they're kicking off their own science careers right here at Plant and Food Research. So welcome, Tom and Rawinia.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
So today we're going to be chatting quite a lot about what a summer studentship is. In a nutshell, these are short, action-packed projects hosted here at Plant and Food Research that get university-level students in and involved with our science and our business. So as a sort of elevator pitch, Tom, would you like to tell us a little bit about who you are and what your project was here over the summer?
Of course, I can certainly do that. Kia ora, my name is Tom Parikowhai. So over the summer, I've been working, of course, at Plant and Food Research. My project has been looking at the botanical specimens on the Mount Albert research site. So a little bit of a history lesson, I suppose, to start with would be the old DSIR days of the Mount Albert research site. The old botanists planted a whole lot of rare trees, and in amongst the rare trees were some of the rarest trees in the world. Namely Penantia billisiana and Tecamenthe speciosa for those botanists out there. So we've got these trees on site, and unfortunately the collection has fallen to a little bit of a state of disrepair, been neglected a little bit, and so the project was essentially looking at what is there, how healthy these specimens are, and developing a plan for protecting them into the future.
So these were sort of native New Zealand plants that we should really care about that maybe we'd forgotten to care about?
Absolutely, yeah. That's exactly the type of tree that they are. So these trees, they're from offshore islands. So we're talking like 20 million years of geographic isolation, which develops some pretty unique genetics. But then on top of that, they're also taonga as well. So taonga species that we ought to be looking after. And of course, they're globally renowned as the rarest trees in the world. So certainly something that we should care about.
And who is your project with, Tom?
Who's the project with? The project is with Nick Waipara. That's the Cody man, absolute legend. But yeah, that's my project. Yeah.
It's his designated nickname now, Cody man.
The Cody man, yeah, exactly. If you've looked at Cody trees around New Zealand before and looked at any of these science articles, Nick's name will certainly pop up. That's Nick Waipara.
You can catch him on our podcast as well. He's been a guest here too. So
look at that, eh?
Seamless.
Sure, Nick.
Seamless advertisement. Cool. And what about you, Rawinia?
So my project is creating an apple orchard simulation, and it's a really big project, so there's multiple teams working on it, collaborating together. My team, Invertebrate Diversity, is looking at the external factors, so this includes soil, characteristics, diseases, pests, stuff along those lines. And yeah, it's been super cool.
So you're working in the matrix, basically, is what I'm picturing, like a virtual apple tree, and you're trying to understand how an apple lives?
Basically, we're trying to make a digital version of a whole apple orchard. We're collecting all this data to create the simulation, and basically it's kind of like a human body simulation. So, you can change the weight, the height of the person and change their diet, and then by doing that you'll see like how their body changes if you do that kind of thing. But it's for a apple tree instead in an apple orchard system.
I can see how that would be really useful because often with science we're wanting to test hypotheses, right? And I'm pretty sure that most apple growers wouldn't be too keen on you going in and being like, right, we're turning all of your soil acidic, or we're going to put all these diseases on your plants and see what happens. So having a virtual simulation allows you to kind of tinker with those things and see what happens.
Yeah, so we'll be able to get an idea of what works best against pests, what works best for orchardists. Even before we kind of go out into the field, we'll put it in the simulation, hopefully, and then it'll spit out like some ideas or like what would happen if we did do that. And then hopefully it will be able to predict what will happen before we even get out into the field and start touching all this stuff. And yeah.
So you're kind of working on like how to predict the future, and Tom's working on how and why we should be protecting the past.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Look at that, eh?
So
what a poet. But yes, that's exactly right.
Who are you working with, Rawinia?
I'm working with Jackie Todd.
Cool. So you're both working on very cool projects with very cool teams.
Yes, sir.
So how did you get interested in science in the first place? You've come on board to do these summer studentships, but I'm talking like, were you the kind of kid that was like eating bugs in the backyard or?
Well, my passion for science I enjoyed it all throughout primary and high school and stuff, but I feel like, so I'm just studying zoology and I've always loved animals, and yes, I was that child that did go out and collect bugs.
Not eat them.
No, I didn't eat them, but I did go around and I was like, what's this? Like, oh, let me have a look. So yeah, I did that when I was younger, and then I kind of grew up and I was like, I really want to do something with animals, and I just kept like thinking about it, and at first I thought maybe I should be a vet. I volunteered at a vet and I did not enjoy it, so I thought, okay, I still want to do something with animals, just not cutting them up. So I thought, okay, science, zoology, so yeah, that's why I'm here right now. But yeah, I've always been interested in science, physics, chemistry, biology, but I think the main one is like kind of biology, but yeah.
Cool. And what about you, Tom?
So I think I'll probably start from the point of, so I finished up my undergraduate degree in biology and chemistry, and I just finished up my first year of my postgraduate diploma studying molecular biology. So that's kind of like the trajectory as to where I am now. So if we wind the clock back, where did I start? Yeah, I was kind of that kid eating bugs, kind of. But like also the kid asking about, why is the ocean blue, and why is the sun this color, and why do my eyes hurt when I stare at it for how long? So
just all the big questions.
All the big necessary questions. Absolutely. We're out here trying to solve problems. So that was certainly me from a very young age. And growing up, you start being taught things in school, specifically in high school, taking biology and chemistry all through right up to year 13. Found myself at lunchtime often, spending my time working out how a fridge works, or spending my time working out how to, how fertilizers work, or how plants photosynthesize. So this was becoming like my just passion, something that I was doing on the side. And I noticed that my brain got really engaged when I started thinking about these types of things. So taking it from that point, I suppose the obvious next step for me was, what if I enjoy it so much, let's just do it in university. So university, did my undergrad, postgrad, and now I'm here.
And you're at Auckland University?
Auckland University, that's right. Yeah, Auckland Uni, yeah.
And what about you, Aronia?
I'm at Otago Uni.
Cool. Yeah. Cool. So it's a good point to note that you can do these summer studentships at different universities with Plant and Food too, right? There's that connection across the country.
Absolutely.
So speaking of which, how did you get involved with the summer studentship program? Did you see it on Facebook or LinkedIn, or someone call your mum and say, get my daughter out of my house?
So I actually applied to Manaki Whenua.
Ah, okay.
So it was, I forgot what it was now, but it looked really cool, and I was like, oh my gosh, I want to try and go for that. Unfortunately, I didn't get it, but their careers person, or whoever that you talk to, they're like, oh, we're really sorry, but try and have a look at Plant and Food and see if you like any of these, because we know they're looking for people. And so I was like, oh, okay, I'll go have a look. And yeah, kind of just, I tried for one of the positions, the one with Jackie, and I got it.
Cool. I think it is a cool point that so many CRIs or Crown Research Institutes are now doing these sort of summer studentships, because way back in the day I did my summer studentship with Manaki Whenua, and it's very different to what it is like doing a summer studentship at Plant and Food, but you do get sort of the same learning experiences and similar-ish projects. So it's great that you were able to join us here at Plant and Food. How did you find your summer studentship, Tom?
How did I get involved? So my story kind of goes back to the unfortunate event of COVID-19. So when we were locked up at home, we were getting close to summer, and I just finished my third year of university. So this was last year, and I decided to apply for one of the studentship programs because they've got a pretty good reputation in and amongst the university community, specifically PFR. So I went and put my little 2 cents in, try to get one, and I did. And my project last year was with Hone Ropata, and that was great fun. and I suppose everyone liked me enough to invite me back. So I was invited to come back this year, this time on a slightly different project. But yeah.
How did you find the application process? Was it easy? Was it difficult? Did you have to do an interview?
So so from my experience, I would start with the applications. I've always found very daunting. I think the biggest hurdle to jump is actually starting in the first place. So the little shout out there, little gem would be to just put aside some time and just do it, because everyone's super lovely, and actually people want you to be there and getting involved and to be putting yourself out there. So that's the first little piece. But no, I would say the application for me was pretty seamless. Just, I think, what's the website that we use to apply? I can't quite remember. It's like Science Jobs New Zealand or something like that. So applying through there was pretty easy. Wrote a cover letter as well. And so from that point, you then had a small interview, which I was provided a prompt. So I had to develop a small presentation about this prompt. And then, I seemed to hit it off pretty well with the supervisor that was there and some of the other people that were in the call. And yeah, so I got the job off that. But that's how I got it. I don't know. How'd you go, Rowania?
So mine was... Yeah, I was looking around. I wanted to find a job over summer. I didn't want to be at home and lazy. So I was like, okay, let's go try and find a job. So I applied to Plant and Food, and they got back to me and they were like, okay, so let's do a little meet and greet. And so you do the meet and greet first with your might be supervisor. And then from that, if they like you, you do an actual interview.
Right.
So, Yana set it up for us. So me and Jackie met, and it was just like kind of a chat. It was very short, maybe like 10 minutes. But after that, Jackie invited me back, and she's like, okay, let's do an interview. And I was like, oh, yay. And it was pretty straightforward. I didn't have to do a prompt thing. I think they only asked me 2 questions, and it was like, what do you want to do for your career in the future? And it was just very how can we help you? And I was like, oh, okay. It was very short as well. It was only 10 minutes. And then after that, they called me and they're like, okay, cool. But yeah, I think with applications, I struggle with the whole interview part. So I was very nervous. And yeah, they just made me feel like really nice and comfortable. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. But yeah.
I think often the first one you do is the hardest as well. So if you're listening to this thinking about maybe doing a summer studentship in the future, just make the application. You'll be fine. The first one is the hardest, and then you can reuse those skills that you learn in your interview process.
Come along. Get involved.
Can you tell me a little bit more about who Yana is and what her team does?
Yep, so Yana helped me with the Te Rito pathway. So the Te Rito pathway is basically helps get Māori students into science pathways and a part of the summer studentship. Yeah, so I met with her. She was really nice, and her and her team, Jenny, Tiawe,
Stacey as well.
Stacey, yeah.
Don't forget Stacey.
Stacey, yeah. So, yeah, they've done a lot, and they've organised a lot. So one of the things they organised was the wānanga that we went to. So these are little sessions that were held throughout the studentship, and they focused on different things. So they got past students like Waka Paul in, and they basically led us through a session on teams and just about different things. So Waka Paul did cultural safety in the workplace, and unfortunately I didn't get to attend the other 2 because I was out doing fieldwork. But
a true scientist.
Yes, a true scientist. But yeah, they seemed really cool, and I know Waka Paul's one was like, it was really eye-opening, and it just showed like all the stuff that you can do in the workplace to be culturally safe.
Yeah, there's been an incredible amount of work put into those programs, and I think it's really important to acknowledge the team that did that work and also the students that are coming through, because we're so lucky to have you as part of the Plant and Food family, even if it's just for the summer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so, I mean, my experience has been pretty amazing, to be honest. I would say this is the only time in my science career where I've sat around a table with 5 other Māoris and 5 other Māori scientists at a science institution. So it's a pretty monumental achievement, just that. It's pretty amazing, and I think it's very powerful, at least for me. Yeah, so And that's a massive shout out to Stacey Fatiora and the team and the Māori development at PFR. They've done phenomenal work. I would say the real point of the Te Rito pathway is to create safe spaces for Māori within science, because they don't typically exist outside of, your house or, in and amongst your whānau. So, places like the university, it's quite difficult to find your place and where you belong. And what Te Rito does is it creates a place within PFR where you can belong within, a Māori group, a Māori cohort, which is, it's pretty incredible. And so, as Arawani was saying, these little wānanga, they delve into things such as cultural safety within the workplace and kind of give you, people that have experience doing what it is that you are looking to do, and are incredibly supportive as well. So, pretty invaluable resource, but it's good.
And the Te Rito project runs alongside the sort of not standard summer student program, but they're intertwined, and summer students coming through Plant and Food will experience a little bit of both sides, won't they?
Absolutely. Yeah, I believe that the Te Rito projects often provide like a Mātauranga Māori spin to them, which is, pretty amazing for Māori students as well. However, there is a lot of overlap. It's not like, you're not segregated. We're not going back to the 60s just yet. But it is, there's a pretty incredible cohort of students as well. So a really good amount of overlap whilst retaining that cultural safety, which is so important.
Full credit to Stacey and her team for making that project.
Absolute shout out. Absolutely.
So when we're thinking about why most people will get into doing the summer studentship projects, it's often because they're wanting an experience of being a scientist in a CRI, a Crown Research Institute, because you can't really get that when you're working like a summer job at Glassons. No disrespect to working at Glassons, but if you're wanting to be a scientist, it's cool to come into a science sector and do that work. So what was it like being a junior scientist here at Plant and Food, working with other scientists, being involved in sort of that research design and experiment process?
I definitely loved it.
Yeah.
It was a really cool experience. It opened my eyes up so much. There was lots of things that I didn't actually realize scientists did, and after coming here and doing the internship, there was a lot of stuff that, I was like, wow, okay. Yeah, so one of the things was they go on trips all the time, and they go on field trips a lot. I guess it depends what department you're in, but it was like a lot of traveling, and I thought that was cool, and I think it might have been the role I was in. Yeah, so I did lots of different stuff. I helped out in the lab, I did some computer work, and...
You got the science experience.
Yeah, the science experience.
I remember back to my summer studentship, and I think I had the opposite experience to you. I definitely had the science experience. I did a cool project and things like that, but I also spent a lot of time doing like admin and labeling plates and the less traveling out and doing the fun side of science.
I definitely got stuck with that job a couple times.
Learn the practical skills.
Practical stuff. I had to label like 300 little containers for
Classic.
mealworms. But no, it was good. It was like a good overall experience. You're not always going to have like super really cool experiences. You're going to have like really cool days, and some days are just going to be really mundane. And I think that's, a good balance.
It's also the point of these projects, isn't it, to kind of get you a little bit of a taster of what it's like to actually be a scientist, which is great when you're trying to decide where you want your career pathway to go.
Yeah.
What about for you, Tom? Did you have some boring lab tasks as well, or not really?
Well, not really. I would say I had quite a unique project at PFR because, of course, a lot of the cohort of summer students were doing, hard science type stuff with a whole lot of graphs and a whole lot of data. My stuff was probably more qualitative, and that was both this year and last year. So I guess fortunately or unfortunately, I haven't experienced so much of that. But what I have uncovered, which I think for me has been most useful or most interesting, is being in and around scientists. You get to understand the drivers of scientists. So why is it that people do science in the first place? Because I think I'm of course trying to work out where I want to go as well. So if you can kind of understand why people are staying around in a certain place, or why they're doing a certain thing, or why they're working for Plant and Food, for example, that was pretty useful insight for me. So Yeah. So not so much of the of the hard science stuff, but yeah.
So just adding on to that, with my supervisor, yeah, you really get to learn what scientists like and don't, and they get to focus on projects that they really enjoy. So my supervisor, Jackie, she really enjoys conservation and sustainability. So a lot of her projects are centered around that. And I think it's really cool that you kind of get to pick what you want to do and what you don't want to do kind of thing. It's really moldable and, yeah.
It's hard to grasp that concept without living in it as well, I think. People can talk about how scientists have this freedom to work within the boundaries of what they choose their careers to be, but until you're actually on the ground working with your line manager at the time, it's hard to see just how much sort of creative license people can have over their own work days, which is one of the biggest benefits to science, I think. So it's cool that you got to see that by working with Jackie. So what's next for you guys? Have you had any thoughts about what the future's going to be? Has your summer studentship here at Plant and Food shaped any of that? Are you still in the I don't know category?
Who really knows, eh?
Yeah, so I'm heading into my second year of uni. I've still got a long way to go. I'm doing a conjoint, so it'll be a Bachelor of Arts and Science. So yeah, I've got 3 more years. But then I'm hopefully looking to do postgrad in science. The studentship really kind of just solidified that I do want a career in science, probably along the lines of using mātauranga Māori with it, so Māori knowledge. And yeah, that's my plan. I might go a bit deeper into academia. Not too sure, but yeah, that's kind of what I want to do.
Yeah, so the future, oh my goodness. Future as in next couple of months I'll be starting my Masters. So my Masters will be at the University of Auckland, and this is the second year, so this is the research year of my Masters. And after that, I suppose that's a good question. Not entirely sure yet. Potentially do some research, but potentially go into something completely different, potentially go overseas, potentially get some strange jobs. I'm not sure. Something way different. I really don't know. I would say, how has this experience kind of contributed to my understanding of where I want to go? At PFR, it's not just a science organization. What you recognize when you hang around here for a little while is that it's an incredibly intricate and complex machine, which has a whole lot of different people working on a whole lot of different things to make it work. And so what that means is I could organize a meeting, say, with a business manager or with someone that does, the comms or something like that. So I can, and that was what I wanted to do. And that's actually one of the really useful things I got out of the studentship as well, is kind of getting a taster for these other areas that tap into science, because I know that I like science and that I really enjoy science, but whether I want to pursue a purely academic route, I'm not entirely sure yet. So having that kind of diversity of experience was really, or that diversity of insight, I suppose, was really useful. And I would say that's probably what I would take into the future as being pretty useful. Yeah.
I've interviewed a lot of scientists on this podcast, and the one thing that they sort of have in common is that no one ended up where they thought they were going to end up, which can be a good point to remember when you are at the beginning of your career and you're worried about not knowing where you're going, because I still don't, exactly. And most of the people that I've interviewed still don't, or they don't know how they got to where they are at this point. So that's a good thing to remember as well. So I'm sure that you both learnt a lot about the science during your internships, but was there anything that was sort of not science related that you learnt during your time here at Plant and Food?
Yeah, so I definitely think one of the big takeaways that I learnt was don't be afraid to ask questions. It's an internship and they're here to help you and for you to learn. So, you can ask them questions, and if you do get stuck, you don't have to be, that person that knows everything. Yeah, they're here to help, and it's a really good learning opportunity.
And then I would say, not related to the project, would be, I think one of the critical things that you observe in PFR is that everyone's a scientist, and I suppose one of the fundamental scientific ideas is that you start with a problem and you try and work your way towards a solution. And that's quite it's effective and efficient, but it's quite a cool way and a very useful way of looking at the world and looking at problems that you have in your everyday life. The quite interesting thing is that of course can be applied to a myriad of different jobs and occupations and whatnot. So it definitely encourages and supports that mode of thinking, and that's useful in other areas of life and other jobs and whatnot.
Yeah, I think for my summer studentship many moons ago, one of the big things that I took away was actually just what it was like to be working in a business environment, because it was my first job that wasn't like retail or hospo. So even that in itself can be a really big takeaway from a thing like this.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Is there any last little tidbits of advice that you would give to someone who is maybe listening to this podcast and considering whether they wanted to do a summer studentship?
I would say definitely do it. It helps you figure out if it's for you or if it's not for you. Yeah.
Whether to do it or to not to do it. That's a great question. I would say certainly if you have the opportunity to take full advantage of it. And what I mean by that is that if you do get into one of these positions, to then get engaged, talk with people. I think definitely one of the things about science, it can be a bit dull. Sometimes these institutions need a little bit of life, and I think that's been really well received from the summer studentship cohort, because as much as they give to us, I think what you'll find is that we also give back. And so get involved, go talk to people, try your best to get a real feel for what everyone does and what potentially you like and what you don't like, and if you don't like it, that's totally fine too, because you really don't have to do it. It is certainly a very valuable experience as far as I'm concerned, but yeah.
Great. It would have been a really bad end to the podcast if you were both like, nah, it sucked. Well, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast today. It was great to hear about your summer in science.
Of course.
Thank you.
And thank you for listening. You can check out more about what our summer students get up to or how to become one yourself by checking out our website. Or if you just want more SciGest in your ear holes, you can check out our episode on the summer students from last year, the Apprenticed Scientists. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel while you're there. Ngā te wā.